Welcome to Essential Concepts of Redux. After watching this video, you will be able to discuss Redux concepts such as action, store, and reducer, describe the principles behind Redux architecture, explain the terms dispatching and action creators, relate the concepts action, store, and reducer to a user interface example. Redux offers a centralized state management system for your application. When you use Redux, you do not need to manage component states. Redux manages the states at the application level, not the individual components. Using this approach, you should treat the component properties as immutable. You create new state objects rather than changing existing ones. Redux uses actions, stores, and reducers when updating component properties. Let's briefly discuss each and then discuss them in more detail later. The store contains all the current states of the application. You call an action object to indicate the need for a state update, but the action does not specify how to change that state. Instead of specifying the how in the action, you write a reducer function to how to update the state in the store. Before going into more detail, consider an e-commerce application cart. From the user's point of view, they expect the total number of items in the cart to increase by the number of items they add to the cart after selecting Add to Cart. Let's see what happens behind the scenes regarding actions, the store, and reducers to make this work correctly. When the user selects Add to Cart, it starts an action creator function. Let's say you name the function addItem. The addItem function is an action creator. It creates and returns an action object. Your component sends that action object to the store using a dispatch function. This entire process is called dispatching an action. The store contains all application states, including the state of the cart. Part of the cart's data includes its current number of items. The store itself uses a data structure called a state tree to store and manage the application's states. The tree is a JavaScript object with methods for managing its properties. The action object describes the action that needs to be performed. It contains properties including type and payload. The store uses the action's type property to determine which reducer should process the action. The payload property stores other data needed to update the state. In our example of adding items to a cart, the payload would include the cart's increased value. The store then calls the reducer, which tells it how to change the state. When the store receives the action, it calls the appropriate reducer and passes both the action object and the state object to the reducer function to calculate the new state. Note that the reducer is a pure function, meaning it always returns the same output when given the same inputs. It has no side effects or mutating functions. Using reducers may seem like an extra step in the Redux architecture. However, this architecture enables a predictable state container by ensuring explicit state changes. It makes reading the code easier when you need to track state changes by separating the action description and the specifics of how the state changes. In turn, this makes debugging easier and helps simplify code maintenance. In this video, you learn that the action object describes the action that needs to be performed. The store maintains all of the application's current states. A reducer tells the store how to change the state. The dispatching action process uses an action creator function, which returns the action object and sends the object to the store using a dispatch function. The Redux architecture makes states predictable because changes are explicit through actions, reducers, and the application store.